Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. It's quite the evening because, unfortunately, this amazing show, has come to an end, which is Daredevil, Born Again. I'm sorry, I can't keep doing it. It's because it's just...
Bravo.
I try. I don't know. My brother's making fun of me for it a couple weeks ago, so it's coming back in my head. Anyways, so this is going to be a spoiler episode, essentially, just because the season, at least the first season of Daredevil Born Again is just finished. So if you haven't watched it all, just stick around for our rantings of like our reviews of the show, and then come back later for the spoilers and stuff. So if you guys do like the video, feel free to give us that thumbs up to just to show your support. Ring the bell for notifications, so every time we drop it, you can just check it on out. And of course, subscribe, just so you get a bit of everything. You know, just do it all. Everything's fine. So Daredevil is easily one of the best series, anything Marvel related, to this day still. I remember when it first came on in like 2015, 2014, one of those years. Easily one of the coolest things on Netflix. That actually was one of the reasons why you wanted to get Netflix at that time. It brings back Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, Deborah Ann Woll, is that what it is? As Karen Page, Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, John Bernthal as the Punisher from the second season and his own series. And just, again, great to see all these characters and actors come back for this, because this is definitely, once it finished up in 2018 with Daredevil Season 3, it was one of those things like, are we ever going to get these characters back? Are we ever going to get that level of storytelling? And not to say we haven't. I don't think all the MCU shows are dumpster fires like some people have made it out to be. But it definitely, I think this was the recharge that and the MCU needed. Kind of like what Deadpool vs. Wolverine did last year. This is doing it for Marvel this year. And with all that being said, I'm going to give this series, this season at least, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I think this is definitely one of the best things to watch on TV or streaming right now. It's on Disney Plus and I believe Hulu, if you have that one, just because Disney and Hulu Plus are merged, but it may just be on Disney Plus. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, feel free to check it out if you haven't watched it already. And like I said, highly recommended.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely there with you. Look, I mean, Daredevil as a character is probably my favorite character in Marvel Comics, and the Daredevil Netflix series was, I think I've said it's like to this day, still my favorite thing Marvel has ever done. There's a little bit of bias there, if anyone could tell, but I loved that series. So hearing that they were coming back with it was really exciting, because we got glimpses of Matt Murdock in, Spider-Man No Way Home, and then later in She-Hulk, and then we got some Kingpin in the Hawkeye series and the Echo series. Some worked, some didn't work. It was one of those things where, they were teasing those characters, and I just wanted them to come back proper, like how we got them in the Netflix shows. And I think the show did a really good job of nailing that, having to work around certain things, behind the scenes. There's a lot, out there being said about how they had to rework the show. But all that being said, 9 episodes later, I really, really enjoyed this series. And I would say I would put this on par with probably season 2 of the Netflix Daredevil series, where, it's a little bit uneven at times, but overall, the character work with Matt Murdock and Kingpin here is the real driving force in the show. And who better to lead that than Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, who were just born to play these roles. So they really anchor that sense, and there's a lot of strong themes in this season of TV that I really loved. So these characters I really enjoy. This series I really enjoyed, and for me this one's going to be a 4 out of 5 as well. There are certain things that that are a little bit nitpicky for me, but overall, like you mentioned, I think this is probably one of the better Disney Plus series that we've gotten lately, and obviously this is one of my favorites because, of course, I'm a bit biased. So yeah, the high recommend for me. Stick around and hear the rest of our thoughts, because there's a lot to dig into, and I'm really glad that there is. It's not one of those shows that just kind of watch and forget about. This is something that you can sink your teeth into, and that's something that we've been missing from Marvel, it feels like, for a little while.
That's That's high praise, Bernie. I really appreciate your thoughts on this show. I gotta stop. It's gonna be addicting. I'm gonna start talking like that. Anyways, yeah, 4 to 5 from both me and Byrne. Definitely, if one of the best, if not the best, Marvel series is done in a while. 100% agree with, like, this is one of those meaty shows that we've been really wanting, something like concrete and story and just, potential to keep going. So yeah, for those of you who did happen to watch the show in its entirety like we did, feel free to stick around. We're just going to talk about our favorite things that we liked and some cons of, things I think they could have improved on. Otherwise, check out the show, come on back and dive deep with us. So yeah, Byrne, do you want to go first with one of your favorite things, or shall I tee it off, my dude?
I can go ahead and I can kick it off with obviously the two biggest things in this series, and of course that's the characters of Daredevil and Kingpin. Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio. I just really loved what they did in this series with the parallel storylines that they were on. How given the title Born Again, they were both of these guys. Were trying, it seems like their best to be different than who they were in the past. Who was the characters that we saw in the first 3 seasons of the Netflix show. It seems like they were both on a similar journey, separately obviously, but it wasn't one of those things where they were very much pitted against each other throughout the season in direct conflict like we've gotten in the past. They were definitely dealing with their own things. Matt trying to struggle with not falling back into the Daredevil of it all, in honor of his fallen buddy Foggy. And Kingpin, it seemed like, after all the things that happened, in between, the Netflix series and the Echo show, that was trying to, in some form, get a new lease on life, and what seemed like initially as trying to go on the straight and narrow, but them being who they are, they just couldn't do that. And I just love seeing that push and pull throughout the season of them trying, but them again just failing almost at every point and just returning back to who they were. It's a fun character story, I think, for them, and it was put them in really interesting situations. While the overall plot line wasn't being fulfilled week to week, the character work all in between them was all the real meat of the show. And I'm a really big fan of character-centric stories, and I think for them two in particular, it worked really, really well for me.
Yeah, it's funny how we were talking about beforehand. Just want to get this aspect now. Not sure if everyone is in the dark like I was, or if you guys have been following it, but Byrne did bring to my attention that the first the first episode and the last 2 episodes were basically rewritten by a different team, and then the rest of the show was kind of part of the original writing. Again, if I'm wrong, I apologize, Byrne. But
yeah, that's essentially it. With just Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who worked on Loki season 2 and a few episodes of like Moon Knight here and there. There was obviously the writer strike that happened a few years ago, and during that time, Marvel looked at this show that was currently in production and didn't like what they saw, and they reworked it, brought this new creative team in, and yeah, like you mentioned, the first episode, the 8th episode, and this last episode are the new direction that the show was sort of reworked in. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm sure if people want to know more, they can look into it. But the show started off as something different initially. They didn't like it. They brought a new team involved, and we got what we got, which was kind of like a little bit of a Frankenstein here and there. But with the episodes that we got from this new creative team, I think they made it work to the best of their abilities, and the stuff that they did do and introduced is by far the most interesting stuff that we got.
Well, how you're breaking it down and kind of with that aspect being played into it, it's almost like the original team didn't really. They tried to make it look like Kingpin was going on the straight and narrow, where the team behind like the best episodes of this season really painted that picture that on the surface he's trying to be different, but Kingpin is Kingpin through and through, where Daredevil was really serious about trying to go on the straight and narrow. So I think it just like both of them perfectly played it off, like how you said, like who's better to lead it, like they both did. Like Vincent D'Onofrio, this is the Kingpin we've been wanting, because in Echo and Hawkeye he was definitely just underpowered essentially, but that's because he's so popular from Netflix that they couldn't take away from the other actors and stuff in that one. And yeah, Charlie Cox just continues to kill it, even in his small cameos. Like when Spider-Man Homecoming came out and he had his little cameo, it's like, we have to have Daredevil back. Like, what are we doing here? So I'm glad that, 4 years later we finally got this show and it's all played off. Going off on that, I'm 100% agree with you that it's just great to see these characters back, just because they helped really bring out the dark side of Marvel, with the whole MCU series going on, the movies and Agents of Shield and stuff. So it was great seeing them, and honestly, when Punisher came on in season 2 by John Bernthal, where back then I wanted Frank Grillo to do it, especially after the Purge 2 and his performance in that. I'm like, John is Punisher. No offense to Thomas Jane, because that was my Punisher growing up. So seeing all these guys back, it really just brought the nostalgic feels to it. I remember bits and pieces of the original seasons. It's been a while since I've rewatched it, but just great job all the way. And I like how this one, in all honesty, I feel like this one has tied more itself to the MCU than other recent shows. The only other exceptions would probably be like She-Hulk, and maybe Hawkeye to a certain extent, but more so like
Miss Marvel a bit too. There's a lot more like direct references just because the nature of that character.
Yeah, like they all just kind of tied into, like, they had like good amount of MCU references, and not to say that's what makes the shows great. It's just nice that it keeps bringing it. The MCU feels like a cohesive thing, because when they were on Netflix years ago, there was definitely like under Netflix. That was their own separate thing, so they could kind of acknowledge it, but not really. Or like Agents of Shield kind of made nods to the events in Daredevil, but never really acted upon it or like talked about it much. So
yeah, I think like the directest reference we got was like a brief mention or like a newspaper ad of like the Chitauri invasion of the first Avengers. That was it. Like we didn't get really any other references or anything like that. Whereas here they mention scrolls, they talk about other characters. It's like, okay, like it exists in this universe, but it still feels very focused, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it manages to do a great job of, yes, we are essentially their little cogs in the MCU, like, because Daredevil, while he is like one of the most popular superheroes, especially in the last 10, 20 years, it's he's still a very street level character. I don't think he's ever had any intentions of joining the Avengers or anything like that. He's definitely one of those characters like, no, I'm sticking at home because that's where shit needs to get done. Almost like Batman in a way. So I just like seeing them back, and again, I just love the references. Like we got Swordsman from Hawkeye series, along with references from Echo from her own show and Hawkeye, and the Skrulls, like you said. I even saw in one episode they made a mention of an Officer Morales. Could be incredible coincidence, but Miles is in the MCU. Donald Glover's Nightcrawler from Spider-Man: Homecoming. He said, "Oh yeah, my nephew lives out here," and all that stuff. So it's only a matter of time to get Miles, hopefully. So I'm glad that this show is a perfect mix of bringing back the nostalgia from 10 years ago, but also feeling very up to date and connected now. So that was just one of my favorite aspects of it.
Mm-hmm. And even seeing Mr. Khan, Kamala's the dad in that bank episode, which was sort of like it was fun. It was a bottle episode. Again, it's one of those things that doesn't like progress the overall storyline, but it made itself vital in that. Matt was like, this was him like sort of coming back in as like Daredevil, although not with the suit, but him directly putting himself in danger to like save other people. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool how they were able to make that work. And it was just fun seeing those two interact and talk about Kamala and all that. So yeah, as more like a direct that's like the most direct cameo we've gotten from like other things, like other in reference to other series of the Netflix show, and it worked really well in there for sure.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I did like the little cameo of Haley Steinfeld's character in the Marvels, where Kamala tries to do the whole Nick Fury speech with her. It's like, no, you're not Nick Fury. Don't try that. But that, and again, I just like that we got a couple more, street level heroes. Mostly just White Tiger, because that's a character I completely forgot about. The only thing I really have experience with that character was the Ultimate Spider-Man show, where it was like their Spider-Man in high school and stuff, along with the other the Defenders. So I really liked that coming back and introducing that character, and just I will say this show, I love that this is like the first, well, not the first, but definitely a more TVMA show than even the Netflix series were, because they were pretty violent too, but these last few episodes alone was like, what are we watching? This is definitely not something to watch with your kids, man, or unless you don't care. But oh man, especially the last episode when Punisher got in the mix of things, I was like, that's it. That is it. That's what I wanted to see for a while. I'm sure a lot of other people too. Not to say I'm just craving violence, but I'm like, these are pretty gritty characters. We kind of need this stuff, It's best not to downplay it, I feel like. So again, just I love that stuff.
Yeah, again, it like you mentioned, it adds that more mature tone. So definitely the stuff that they were able to do with Punisher in the last few episodes, Kingpin obviously in the last few episodes, and the stuff with Muse too was very unsettling too. So they weren't afraid to pull their punches or anything like that. They were definitely along the lines of the grittier, darker stuff that we got from the original Netflix series, and they amped it up even where a lot of that stuff was sort of implied violence. It was very direct in the last episode, especially. So yeah, to see them go there was sort of like okay, like this is like almost like a mission statement. Like, yeah, this is under the Disney banner, but this is definitely not Disney stuff here that's going on.
Serious. I mean, this is the kind of content that gives excuse or at least leverage to be like, we need a Ghost Rider show. Blade could definitely work in the MCU. Punisher should get his series rebooted. I know they're doing that John Bernthal's going to be involved in like a Punisher short, but I'm like, I want a show, man. Don't stop. Give us the shit. I want the stuff. So, yeah, like I said, I really like that. I think it kind of sucks. I didn't mind the Muse character casting because it's the same kid from Wednesday who also, spoiler alert, plays a serial killer as well. So I'm just like, oh, this kid's already getting kind of typecasted for series. But again, not a huge deal. I thought it was really great, very creepy. Kind of like how the bank robbery episode with Mr. Khan. And then this one, it's almost like different genres within like the New York storytelling. We got bank robbers, we got, serial killers like Law and Order in a way. So while the show did feel very episodic throughout the weeks and stuff, it all was still was great. But definitely the strongest episodes so far were 1, 8, and 9 because that team really was able to rework stuff and kind of set the tone for the rest of it. So my only things I guess to really finish it off on is just the cons of it, which I don't care that this season ended with a cliffhanger, but after you explained to me like the team that wrote these 3 episodes, how this season was supposed to be 18 episodes long, they broke it into 2 halves, which does sound vaguely familiar. So I think that's fine. I just hate that this one felt like, just because in case it doesn't happen, it sucks that it would end like that. But yeah, I just hated that part. And then what else? What was the other thing? I wrote my notes down. And purely biased opinion, not enough Punisher. That's all I gotta say. I know it's Daredevil's show, but just saying, we can never not have enough of Johnny Bernthal and his groanings and his roars and all that stuff, and his magnificent head of hair. So
and him wanting to tell you something,
Yeah, pretty much. So no, that's it. Otherwise, great show. Love that they updated his Daredevil suit to a certain extent. I want to see Frank get a more MCU or like Marvel Comics inspired look. Hopefully in the short and stuff like that. He kind of did, like in the Marvel Now series, how he had the beard and long hair. That's kind of like a story arc he had, but it's kind of a bummer they shaved it off and stuff.
Yeah, I do like grizzled Frank more so than the clean cut Frank. It's just something about like him looking messy just really fits with that character, more so than the high and tight look.
Yeah, either one, but I would not mind the more beard and long hair look, just because that's a different version, like of like a more modernized Frank. So, yeah. Other than that, what else you got, Bern? What else did you like, or what else did you kind of like didn't really sit well with you?
Mm-hmm. I just the last thing that I did really like was the filmmaking aspects from the first 8, the 9th episodes, where we got to see a lot of different playing around with like lighting, very motivated lighting, especially with Daredevil, deep red lighting, and Bullseye the blue, which was really cool, and the playing around with the aspect ratios and all that, and the music, the licensed music that they used in those episodes, I thought that lent itself to have a really clear like direct identity for the series that the other episodes didn't really have so much, but those definitely did. Like, okay, like there's a style here that that we don't get to see a lot in like Marvel stuff, because it's very uniform. Obviously it's a connected universe. They try to keep things as similar as possible. But so when things like this happen, where you see a little bit more creative liberties with especially how things look and sound, I thought all that stuff was really really cool. So I did very much enjoy that. Um, oh, sorry. Go ahead if you have something to say on that.
No, I'm sorry, Bern. I was just gonna say too, before we forget, one thing we were talking about before that I forgot to bring up was just, well, it kind of compound to the storytelling and the acting from Charlie Cox and Kingpin. I really like the lighting. While it was super obvious, one of my favorite scenes was when, after Matt got shot by Bullseye trying to kill Kingpin. I love the inverted view of, Matt on the ground bleeding out, because most, like how we were talking about, most hero stories and stuff, it's always from the ground up, like where it's they're looking up in the sky into the heavens. And this one, because he's Daredevil and he's been trying to suppress his darker side and kind of that part of him, I like that it was flipped, where it's almost like as above so below. So there are people who look up to the heavens, he's the one kind of in his own hell. So I really like that moment. Just little things like that. Wow, that's such a cool thing. I feel like it does a great job of really telling the story and kind of getting people in that visual idea of what the characters are like.
Yeah, it's just really good visual storytelling, which all those episodes had in spades. So really looking forward to the more creative things they're able to do with the second half of the story, essentially next season. So yeah, stuff to look forward to on that end. But for the negative side, for me, is definitely the byproduct of that rework. It's a lot of things that do feel a little bit rushed, like the Heather storyline. I feel like her character was a little bit undercut with how they had to sort of rush her into being sort of like on Kingpin's side by the end of it. So that felt like wasn't properly established. So that was a little bit frustrating. And obviously the things that happened in the last episode and in the first episode, how quickly Kingpin becomes a mayor, and then how quickly things sort of devolve at the end there. It seemed like, again, it's one of the byproducts of them having to work around a lot of things. It seems like that's something they would have elaborated more on if given the chance. But yeah, so it's just one of those things that it's hard not to see it as like as being rushed, because it is. But the storylines themselves are interesting. It's just I wish they had a little bit more time to sort of stretch that out and let it breathe a little bit more. But yeah, what are you going to do when you're working around things? So that is a little bit unfortunate.
For sure. And I'm also going to tee this one up, as I apologize if you did bring it up already. We've been talking a lot. But one thing I also did appreciate, and I don't think they could have predicted, like how you pointed out to me before we did this, was how much this show imitated life. Whether it be the cops wearing the stupid Punisher skull as a tattoo and on their vest, which I was like, oh, you pieces of shit. It's just, again, very reminiscent of what happened like 10 years ago, where cops were putting Punisher skulls on their cars, and even the creator had to step in and say, this is not a character the law enforcement should be idolizing or even promoting, because he goes after anyone he deems corrupt. So whether you're a cop, whether you're a common criminal, whether you're this or that, it's like he will kill everybody. He is a cold-hearted vigilante. And just, Fisk's rise to power is all too familiar, with our current political landscape, but also just fascism around the world, just how quickly they manipulate and they rise to power and just, get everything their way. So I thought that was just some of the best storytelling and best way to kind of make it relatable for everyday people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where art imitates life and life imitates art, where it's just very sort of scarily synergistic in that sense, where you see the things happen in the show reflected in life, and obviously the things that happen in life were reflected in the text that the show was like based off of. When you go back to the Born Again storyline in the comics, and like you mentioned, the things that happen in the comics with the Punisher, it's like it's all this stuff sort of feeds into itself, and I think they handled it pretty well. It seems like Kingpin is the type of person that would be a fascistic leader and would use the tools at his disposal, being law enforcement and stuff, as his own personal gang, like he has in the past. So it's very much in line with the stuff. So the way that they will incorporate real life issues and make it into into like a comic book side and commentating on all of it. I thought it was really well done. Like you, I did really enjoy it, and seeing how they combat that sort of stuff next season is going to be interesting.
Because Bern, you and I are just a couple of geniuses, man. We're never gonna die. We're gonna live on forever.
Oh, but to jump off that point where once we get to the end of the episode and Daredevil says we're going to need an army, do you think there's any sort of implications there for possibly other characters from the Netflix shows, the Defenders, to sort of show up and combat these ground forces type of thing?
Honestly, I don't know, because I mean, Marvel does have its very, I would say it's majority of the time they're very successful at keeping things under the wraps, unless people get set photos or the actors accidentally let things slip. But I think it would be the perfect opportunity to bring the Defenders back in the right way, because that Defenders show did suck. I kind of put off on it just because, like, I don't know if I want to watch it, but I'm like, when I remember when I did, I was like, this is garbage. Absolute garbage. So I think it'd be a perfect idea to do that. Even bring in an MCU character like Spider-Man, because he is in New York. Given, I don't know if they'll have that in the budget. But I think it definitely would be a smart move to do so. But yeah, I'm very excited with that, and I love the mid-credit scene with Frank and just how he told all those stupid cops, like, you guys are a bunch of clowns, like, you don't know shit about me, like, I would never serve with you guys. Like, he's basically telling them, I can't wait to get out because I'm gonna kill all of you gladly. So, and that's part of why I was bummed out with the cliffhanger. I was hoping we were gonna get rid of those cops and all this stuff, but unfortunately we gotta wait till the next season, which hopefully comes out soon. But I do. But how about you? Did you want to see the Defenders, or are you hoping for maybe new characters in New York altogether?
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to get them back for sure. Obviously, maybe another mix of like other Marvels, like characters that are a little bit more ground level. It would be interesting to see what Hawkeye would do in this sort of environment. So he's a little bit, more ground based now, not very an active Avenger, is in New York, so it would be kind of interesting to see if he would show up, or it would, just something like this where, obviously where you have, by the end of it, you have martial law, you have Fisk and his police thugs, like, basically running the streets. The characters who are more New York ground based, it would be interesting to see if they were able to incorporate them, because yeah, I mean, this is a big issue. You wouldn't just ignore it, and that's kind of one of the things that the Marvel movies sort of suffer from, where these big world like changing events are happening, and it's like, wait, but why isn't this character showing up? So yeah, it would be interesting to see like how they're able to tie it in together, and while also not losing focus at the whole Daredevil of it all. So I would like him to stay the focus, but things like this, you kind of can't just sweep under the rug and say, oh, that's just happening over there.
Yeah, I mean, I think cameos are now a very damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. Because if you put in a cameo for a character, like, people are going to be like, why aren't they in it more? What's this or that? Or, oh, why are we putting them in? It's not their show. So I wouldn't mind a montage of like Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist helping fight, all these, the villains in the city and stuff like that, and the corruption. But we'll have to see. So that's pretty much it for me, Bern. Anything else on your mind, or are we good?
No, I mean, that's it for me. I'm really excited for the second season. Really enjoyed the show. I love these characters. Obviously these versions of these characters. So yeah, this was a treat. Warts and all.
100%, 100%. Yeah, so for those of you who did happen to watch this show, feel free to comment, what you liked about it, what you didn't like, favorite moments, episodes, what have you. We'd love to get your thoughts on it. So until next time, everyone, we got Last of Us Season 2 back. So definitely get on that one. Can't really think of any other series off the top of my head. But, like I said, until next time, everyone, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.